So for my project, we did kind of a combination of a student workshop and some adult workshops. And so the first thing we did was a spring brush management workshop, and we did giveaways. We gave these little cedar tree saws to the first, I want to say 50 individuals that were RSVP'd for the workshop. This was our flyer that we had with all of our speakers. We had speakers from Kansas Grazing Land Coalition, K-State University Research and Extension, and NRCS. So sorry. So I've included some of the slides from some of our guest speakers that they were willing to share with me. So these are all from Doug Spencer. He's our state grazing specialist for NRCS. He shared some resources with us. So this is Landscape Explorer. If you want to use the QR code, it'll take you right to that, but it shows you like past imaging versus currently what's going on. He also shared just some other resources as far as what NRCS is using and like how they're seeing things across the region and different threats to grasslands. This is a neat chart, I thought, kind of showing us the threat of converting native grasslands to cropland and what that kind of does to the ecosystem, as well as the soil carbon changes and loss when that shift happens. Obviously, we talked about the threat of woody encroachment. It's a huge topic of discussion right now across, well, it seems like everywhere. And so he kind of showed us these pictures of what that conversion looks like over time. This is another resource he shared with us, the rangeland analysis platform. And you can just access that online, but it also has some interesting imagery and whatnot that you can use for your research and just to kind of see historically how some things have changed. Again, woody encroachment, we're looking at pictures from the 1990s, like kind of the start of the spread and what that looks like across the state of Kansas now, how it's come so far west. And again, this is a little more regional to our area. We have some of our local counties here in 1990, 2000, 2010, and 2020. And another QR code for a resource for maps to show these types of things. These are some pocket guides that we had available and handed out to all of the farmers and other individuals who attended our spring workshop. This is kind of the process of how that woody encroachment occurs, and he kind of mapped that out for us just to kind of show us what these different stages look like. A little infographic here that he showed us about just kind of some numbers of what that looks like when, it's a mature tree or a young tree and how long that process takes with the eastern red cedars. This is kind of, he called it the PAMS approach, right? And so just another process that you can use to kind of combat some of that woody encroachment on your land that he was explaining to our farmers and ranchers we had. And I think this is the last thing I put in here from his slides, but He definitely just kind of encouraged those farmers and ranchers to take action and understand that what they do today really matters, because obviously, if looking back at those photos he showed us in the 90s, had something been done, we may not be in the situation we're in now. So just 30 years later. And so this is contact information. The next speaker we had at the spring workshop was Molly Reichborn. She is a range management extension specialist for K-State University. Kind of similar on the intro, like just talking about the pastures grazing and the woody encroachment and why that can be problematic for so many different reasons. How much groundwater those trees use, the tick problem, and the increased wildfire risks. What she did a little bit differently, what she talked about were different management techniques. So her next few slides are very they're the different management techniques. So foliar application, you know, the different herbicides that they use to try to target some of those plants, and when the best time to use it is. Soil application, again, same concept here, just the time period of when it really should be used and what types of plants and age of the plants that it is good for. Basal bark application, same same thing, really, just kind of explaining each and every management practice to the farmers and rangers that we had. Herbicide and mechanical, kind of just explaining how that works, giving some images to help explain that and what the process looks like to the farmers and ranchers. And mechanical fire. Obviously, this is the one that I feel like we probably talked about the most, because they're really kind of encouraging it, and it seems to be the most effective, cost and otherwise. But it really is a scary thing for a lot of the farmers and ranchers in my area with the wildfires that we've had over the last few years. So it's kind of nerve-wracking for them, but definitely just kind of giving some more explanation as to why we want to try to use that, even preventative at that point for wildfires, because reduces the amount of fuel for them if we can get those trees out. So then she also talked about some invasive plants. The Sericea lespedeza is a big one, and so I included some of her slides from that. Just kind of trying to help them learn how to identify it, because it's becoming a massive problem in the state of Kansas right now. So then some management options for that as well she included here. She also included this, which is kind of something she's working on right now. It's a project educating non-operating landowners on production risks associated with woody plant encroachment in Kansas grasslands. I'm really excited to see what she does with this, with the North Central Extension Risk Management Education Group. I think it'll be a really neat resource. And then just some of her final slides here, talking again about prescribed burning is the best way to maintain grasslands. And it's also the most effective um, cost wise. So, and then her contact information and also the pocket guides that we handed out to the participants from her speaking portion. And a little funny. So the next deal we have here, this is going to be in the fall. This is a student plant identification workshop that we're putting on. This is kind of the agenda, tentative agenda that we're working with at the moment. We will have, the goal is with this, and we've been working with the schools on it so that hopefully we're able to get, we would like to do this with eighth graders, that will, it'll be like their, for the FFA, the agriculture classes and the FFA students, that's like their first year that they're allowed to participate in FFA. Here is eighth grade year. And so it's going to be kind of an intro into that. Do a little bit of plant ID and they can learn. And so that's going to be very geared towards the eighth graders. But then when they're in those older high school classes, then they can come and help. Those FFA kids will be able to come help with that year's eighth graders, and so they kind of learn and it helps them as well with their plant ID, with their competitions. So I think it's a really neat kind of give and take there on the education side of it. I'm really excited to see how that pans out. For the this fall, we're going to do it at the Cheyenne Bottoms Wildlife Area, which is a really, really neat ecosystem for our area. Really, we don't have a lot of wetlands around here, and so this is just really cool place for us. And there's a very, very large grassy area as well, which is where we're going to be conducting the plant ID mostly. And I'm really excited to see how this works out. But next thing, this we did also in the spring. I usually do this. I'm going to be doing this from here on out for Stewardship Week, which is late April, but we went ahead and did it a few months ago. This is my Rangeland Education Day curriculum that I put together it will be next year and the following years. It's going to be for our natural resources ag class at the high school. This year we did it for the plant and soil science class. So first things first, we just kind of talked about what rangeland is and, like the grasslands, and why we really don't farm that. Because we do have a lot of cropland around here, but there's definitely the portions that are not good, should not be converted to cropland. So next thing, kind of tied this in with soil, because for Stewardship Week, which I will be, my Stewardship Week stuff that I'll be presenting to the kids next week and the following week is all about soil. So I kind of tied it back into kind of that root system and what that does for the soil and what that soil biology looks like in a native plant system versus a cropland system. So we talked about the grass roots. I brought some, I wish I had pictures. I brought some samples of kind of what I had a wheat, because right now we've got a lot of wheat growing around here. So I had wheat that I had pulled and showed them kind of the roots on that, as well as some grass that we pulled off of a property we own 30 or so minutes north of town. And so with the roots that are obviously much taller, much longer, healthier soil. And we talked about the water infiltration in the grasslands with the water cycle versus in a cropland system, and kind of the grass forage ratio versus in a cropland system, what you get as far as livestock. Tied in the eastern red cedars, I brought them a baby cedar tree. If you remember from the first slide where we have the picture of the saws that we gave out at the spring workshop for the adults, my husband got one, and so we went and got a yay tall or so cedar out of one of the pastures and brought that in and kind of showed them and explained to them how much groundwater they use and how aggressive they spread and how much fuel they create for wildfires versus just regular grasses and native plants. So I kind of took this moment to have them look at different management practices, and I talked about fire and how the historically there was a natural fire cycle, and indigenous groups also historically practiced prescribed fire, but then it seemed to be suppressed at the federal level, and that is when we started to see the eastern red cedar and woody encroachment issues start expanding out west. So talked about grazing as a management practice, and how overgrazing tied this back into the soil as well. Overgrazing obviously can lead to bare soils, blowing, erosion, poor water infiltration, and then managed grazing is actually super healthy for the soil, species diversity, the entire ecosystem, essentially. Talked about using fire and grazing together to kind of mimic that natural system that used to exist, and how that works and helps create more plant diversity and improves that habitat. This is so if I can click this link, hopefully it will let me. This is a game that I kind of put together, management match, and it's they're given a scenario, the students are given a scenario and asked what management practice they should be used to combat the problem. So I'm going to see here if it'll work for me. So if you can see this, so I've got some different scenarios here, like just for an example, question 1, a ranch has areas where eastern red cedar trees are spreading rapidly, making it hard for native grasses to grow. The answer is prescribed fire. So this is, if you've ever used Kahoot, this is a very similar situation as Kahoot. It's just free. You don't have to pay for it. It's called Blookit. And so they just get on, if your students have Chromebooks or if they're allowed to use their cell phone, they just type in the little ID. It's Blookit I forget what it's. Dashboard.blookit.com or something. And then they type in the game code. And so you guys get to play a little game, and it's really cool. They're kind of playing against each other, and so they have a winner. It's really neat. They really enjoyed it. They had a lot of fun. And so we did that. And I also used the Prairie Protector game and let them kind of play through that after using the management match. Because, we've gone through the scenarios now, trying to figure out which management practice is best. So then I kind of let them put it into practice with the Prairie Protector game. That is the resource that you guys had given us in a previous meeting. I'm really excited. I think they really enjoyed that. The teachers really enjoyed it as well. So I really think that helped them put the information into practice, per se, that we learned in the management match. And so that was exciting. Then we kind of just did a debrief after playing the Prairie Protector, like what happens if they ignore a cedar, what costed the most, what strategies worked best, etc. And then what happened when they were behind? What happened when the Cedars got ahead of them and, they were kind of behind schedule. So again, tied this back to the soil one more time. Talked about what the cedar trees do to the grasslands, and when the grasslands kind of start to be depleted by those woody encroachment issues, what that does to the root system and what that root system does for the soil. And so there's a little infographic here with kind of the different types of plants, and what the root system looks like for those plants and what the water infiltration looks like on those levels. So I think they were really interested to kind of see what that looked like from a soil perspective. Like I said, I did do this for the plant and soil science class this year. Going forward in future years, we are having a natural resource management class, and so that will be the class that I present this to in the future. But for now, this is kind of where we started. And I was really excited. I think the kids really enjoyed it. I think they learned a lot of things they weren't necessarily expecting to learn, expecting, to grasp. And so kind of got some new ideas thrown at them, which was really cool to see. Then I gave them kind of 3 takeaways. Rangeland needs active management. Tools like fire and grazing are necessary, not optional, and soil health depends on what you have going on above ground. So again, whether we're in a conventional cropping system, a cover crop system, a native plant system, native grass and plant, your soil health depends on what's on top. If there's nothing there, we're going to have erosion issues, etc. And if there's not a good ecosystem on the surface of the soil, there's not going to be a healthy ecosystem within the soil. So then I asked for questions. We had kind of a long talk here. I thought it was really neat. There was one student, we had just recently had an issue with wildfires coming through this area. And so one of the students really wanted to talk about why we would use prescribed fire to prevent wildfires. And so we had a really neat talk there and just kind of broke some stuff down for them. And yeah, so that is all I have. As far as the different workshops we've got going on, again, we're going to have that student plant identification in the fall. They're at that Cheyenne Bottoms Wildlife Management Area, and really just kind of keep up with this system that we put together. I'm really excited. I worked with a lot of partners to get the adult workshop going, and then with the ag class now and the ag teacher, they're here at the school to do this rangeland management day with those kids. So